people like
Very
Rukhsana,
good faculty.
Zuberi and Kausar and Lubna and Tabassum, just to name a few, and there are many more, and Mulazim Bukhari and so many people. Okay, so I think we're getting there. It's 2 minutes to launch time.
Yeah.
Is the meeting ID. Dr. Bukhari, can you send the meeting ID to Dr. Sholay? Dr. Bukhari, are you there?
Sir, I have sent the link to the Dr. Sholay and I am helping her to joining. I am with her.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Prof. Zadi, your secret of your keeping slim all the time. I have
I try to fast at least once or twice a week.
Oh.
Fast. Like sunnah, like nafil, like for my old sins. Yeah, fasting is a great thing. Plus also, I think, basically, in England, you walk a lot. And I prefer not to drive if I can help it. We live in a beautiful area. So just across the road, we have 100 acres of forest. So it's so beautiful. There's a river and the bridge. It's beautiful. And these days, speaking, you know, flowers, roses.
Lovely.
We love it. It's beautiful. So
Yeah.
Wandon River is a branch, a tributary of Thames. So we just walk by it. It's so pretty, amazing. And then we go a lot to Lake District, which is a favorite place that half the family lives in Leeds.
Come again to Malaysia. Malaysia, as you know, is known for food.
Absolutely.
So you will put on the.
Yeah, I think we're getting there. About 30 seconds to go. So who's going to start this? Hassan, are you ready?
Yes, yes, Prof. I'm going to start.
Okay, we have 72 participants now. So people will join.
Yeah, Hassan, over to you.
May I know what you're seeing now? Is it my voice clear?
It says will be started. Yes, I think. Has Tabassum joined? I can't see her.
Yes, she's here.
She's okay. So everybody's here. Alam Sher is there. I mean, speakers are there. The others can join later. Thank you. Oh, this is countdown time. Yeah.
Okay. My name is Hassan. I'm going to be moderator for this webinar. And I would like to welcome all of you officially. The title of this webinar is Online Assessment and Exams through Telepresence. Focus of our speakers in today's webinar will be Open Book Exam, OBA. This is actually a series of webinars, and last month we have conducted several webinars. So I would like to thank the sponsors, Imamia Medics International, Sadiq International University, the University of Edinburgh Global Health Academy, and special thanks goes to all participants. It's amazing, you know, all of our webinars touches more than 3 participants. So really, I think I am clapping, you know, for all of you. And thanks to all our distinguished speakers, Prof. Shabiz Hadi, Ali Mehdi, our Global Health Academy, Imamia Medics International, Shifa Abbas, Mubashir Iftikhar, and there are so many people working behind to make each and every webinar, you know, live. And I think special thanks goes to all of you. Okay, so just to remind everybody, and I need a cooperation and collaboration from all of you to please mute your microphone so that when speaker is sharing the ideas, there shouldn't be a background noise or disturbance. And I would highly recommend to turn off your camera, except those, the speakers, they can on their camera to save the bandwidth. And it's highly recommended to use chat feature and to ask questions. There will be a question answer session at the end of this webinar, about half an hour. So if anyone would like to ask questions in question and answer session, you can unmute and ask. Just to remind each of our distinguished speakers, we will be giving you 10 to 12 minutes and then 5 minutes for each speakers to answer in question and answer session your questions raised by audience. Okay, so Prof. Shabi, I think I don't need to introduce him. He's a well-known professor, scholar. So you can actually continue now from here onward. Shabi, you need to unmute.
That's unmuted, and can
Yes,
you see?
we can hear. Yeah, we can hear.
Can you see me as well? All clear?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, yes.
All right. So may I welcome you all to this webinar, which hopefully will be interesting and beneficial in terms of education. So the background of the whole project is that I'm a member of Imamiya Medicine International, which is a global NGO accredited with the United Nations, and has been working on two major fields in particular. There are many fields, but two in particular: health and education in different countries. In fact, the last membership was in 21 countries with 15,000 plus healthcare workers, doctors, physicians, nurses working in different fields in different areas of the world. We hold international conferences every year, which are massive, largely attended. The one that was in December 2019 was Silver Jubilee event in Karachi and Islamabad, also in Lahore, which was massive. About 6,000 people attended, and so several celebrities who were present in this webinar were also there. So what we do is that we serve humanity above all biases. We serve humanity in general across the world. Our major projects are humanitarian in nature, and many times we've gone on to help other international agencies like Red Cross and Médecins Sans Frontières, even in areas where they can't reach, like in Apollo in Damascus and beyond Damascus and other countries, etc. So one of the major things that we've been doing for years is education. We have been holding seminars. Can you move on to the next slide, please? So we've been holding seminars and webinars and conferences and lectures and online courses and things. And about 4 years ago, I started this project called Medics International Virtual University. That was before all these e-line things started. I was very keen to start it globally. So it prospered for a while. I even used the British television channel for running a series of lectures on moral philosophy and bioethics and humanities, and some clinical courses from different universities across the world. Might I say that IMI is blessed with faculties from different countries and different regions. In USA, we have several professors who are on the academic board of IMI, and Harvard and Emory and Mount Sinai and Albert Einstein and Southwestern, what have you. Then also in London, we have people like Hassan in Edinburgh, and people like Alizade, and many others. Then Iraq, we have a very strong base. Iran is recently, we have communications and strong relationships since 2015. Pakistan is a strong base in India, and right up to New Zealand. So what we do is we try to link them up to international conferences. We also have a journal called Journal of Medicine International, which is open access journal and it's peer reviewed with people like Fatima Javad and Arshad Karimi handling it, and I assist as much as I can. That's one. The second important thing is that we also do other services like assisted living for the elderly people. Like in the West, it's a major, major issue. So the project we're starting now in New Jersey, now I should say that the headquarters of IMI is New Jersey, Princeton. So we've just bought a huge piece of land that you can see over there, 35 acres of land in New Jersey, where we're developing infrastructure with all the facilities that you can see here. It'll have auditorium, a library, assisted living facilities, a massive headquarters for IMIs. There are 55 projects that are going on all over the world. And then we'll have the Center for SIU as well, Sadiq University. At the moment it's in Princeton, but this will be the campus in due course of time. Moving on. This is the project, that's the iconic project of Medics International. We're establishing one major center in Lahore. We have acquired 44 acres of land, out of which initially 10 acres will be where we'll start this project. This is the schematic presentation by the artist It'll have several phases, 3 or 4 phases, in fact. We already started the building. The groundbreaking took place on 22nd of May. A component, major portion of that is the virtual university, which I've been very keen on. Because the COVID crisis became even more manifest that we should go online and start running courses. Since we have academic faculty which spreads right across, so we thought that we'll start with virtual learning projects, and that's how the virtual university, Sadiq International Virtual University, came into being. But I should mention here that this is an extension of the Medics International Virtual University, which is almost 4 years old. Now, we are not in a position to give any certificates, accreditation, affiliation, all this process just started. It'll take 2-3 years. But I promise you, this will be a force to reckon with, because we have a strong base and a strong IT support based in Malaysia, for which I'm grateful to Shaid and Hassan and Mubashir. But we also have centers in New York and different places. Shifa is handling from New York right now. She's the coordinator. Now, Sadiq International University is hoping that it will catch on with the gaps in medical education in different fields. Like humanities is very badly lacking, so we're going to concentrate. One of the mission statements of Sadiq International University is to humanize medicine, to bring it back. I should also mention that we have a strong collaboration with 18 different universities in different parts of the world. And I'll mention 2 or 3. Global Health Academy of University of Edinburgh is helping us through Liz Grant, and she'll be here. And Neil would have been here today, but after 12 weeks of lockdown, he has gone with his wife Helen, so he's apologized today, but hopefully he'll be able to sit in this. I'm warming the chair today for him. He'll be back next week. I should also mention that we have active collaboration with Fatima University, which is owned by Dr. Madad Ali, an old IMI president. He has bought 300 acres of land in New York, upstate New York, which is going to be a massive university in due course of time, and I'm a part of that association as well. Then we have American University of Barbados, which I founded with Mulazim Bukhari, and ERAS in Lucknow is our partner, and Dr. Farzana Mehdi is online here as well. Then we have partners in Iraq like Karbala and Kufa and Tehran, and Virtual University of Health Sciences, University of Malaysia, 2 universities in fact. They're both sitting here, Asnan and Shaid. They'll introduce themselves in due course of time. In Pakistan, we have a strong relationship with Jinnah Sindh Medical University, where I was a professor many years ago, and I was headed by Tariq, who happens to be my student. He's a vice chancellor. Dow is my own institution at Lahore University. So lots of things, and things are expanding so rapidly that I can't even count. So the objective here is that what we want to do is, I'll just mention in 2 or 3 words and then move on, because I want people, experts, the educators to come forward. So the intentions are that in due course of time, after the webinars, we will go on to running hands-on workshops. And Shaid has already planned a series of 10 workshops. So the plan would be that we'll have 1, maybe 2 webinars, that is alternate a week, webinars on different subjects covering various aspects of medical education. And then we'll probably also go into clinical sciences. And then 1 hands-on workshop every month. Now, the problem with hands-on workshop is that we can only have X number of people. And I'm told by Shaid and Hassan and these people who are experts that not more than 35 can be entertained. So people have to register early, and that is important. But we'll have a series. We have about 10 workshops. And also we have support of Dr. Sholeh from Tehran Virtual University and Iran University, who is helping us in many ways in terms of coordinating, collaborating with Irani colleagues and she's also helping us with the book that we are writing at the moment, and that for which I'm grateful to all of you. I requested everybody to chip in, and I've received 35 chapters. This will be published by Springer. Now, Springer are known to us because between me and my wife, we have published 6 books with them and their friends. So I spoke to Silvana yesterday, she's the editor, that as soon as she gets the proposal form, that will be by Monday, it'll start processing and we'll get all the information. Then I'll send you all the details of how to write the manuscript and do your best. And if the volume increases in size, then probably we'll have to divide in 2 volumes, because we cannot have more than 300 pages in a book. So that is the target. The theme of book is medical education. medical education, that will cover it all. So future plans are webinars, workshops. We have a journal called Journals of Medics International, JMI. You're welcome to log in and send your articles, peer-reviewed, open access journal. We also have access to Irani journals and to Pakistan Journal of Pakistan Medical Association, Pakistan Journal of Medical Sciences. I am on editorial board of them, so they are there. We are also hoping that in due course of time, with the collaboration of different universities, we'll start our own certification courses. That may take a while, but God willing, we'll do that. So I'll stop here and hand over the mic to the famous professor from Pakistan, Professor Rukhsana Zuberi, who has impressed me every time I heard her. She has really an excellent knowledge of medical education, the art of speaking. Welcome, Rukhsana. Please introduce yourself and take over the mic. Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and thank you so much for this. I'm really touched by your introduction. So before I start, I'd like to say Dr. Grant, Dr. Zaidi, Dr. Tabassum, Zehra, Dr. Shaid, Hassan, and all organizers, thank you so much for organizing this and inviting me to it. I think this is a wonderful work that you're doing, which actually made me accept that I should also chip in to the wonderful work that's being done by all of you. For my brief introduction, it's pretty difficult, but I am Rukhsana Zuberi, working at the Khan University, Karachi, Pakistan, as a professor. I'm director of the National Residency Program South at the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Pakistan. I'm also a member of the regional journal on health professions education and on the International Board of Medical Education, and also a member of the Aspire panel for excellence in student assessment of the Association of Medical Education in Europe. I think that's more than enough. So today I am going to be talking on standard setting in the COVID era. So if I may just share my class. And this I'm doing jointly with Dr. Naveed Yusuf. And it is a wonderful opportunity and so important at this time in our lives to go online assessment, especially as this is the need of the day. And I hope that this stays even when the COVID goes away. I have no financial or any other interest that would constitute a conflict. Just for an introduction, the two main pillars of assessment. It's the validity and reliability, which need to be safeguarded in all circumstances. Along with that, you need institutional assessment systems.
Sorry.
Yes?
Sorry, Prof.
Yes.
We can't see slides.
You can't see the slides?
Yeah, could you click the green button at the bottom, share screen?
Well, okay, just a second.
Your voice is clear, loud and clear. Just...
Yeah, so I don't know where it went. Okay, just a second.
Yeah, now it's coming on the way. Yeah,
is it there?
Could you just click? Yeah, could you click on slideshow mode? And you're ready to continue.
Yes.
Sorry for this.
All right, sorry for that. So as I was saying, this is something very, very topical and important for today. I have no conflict of interest. And the two areas that we really want to safeguard is validity and reliability. Along with the quality of assessment is very much dependent on the institutional assessment systems we have in place, as well as the level of congruence between the curriculum and the assessment maps. If they are one on top of the other, then we are safe. Next is the validity and reliability of our judgment decisions. When we say this person should pass, this person may not pass, what is the evidence we base that on? Part of that is also dependent on our examination banks, on how robust or valid they are, which is item development, review, renewal, and item quality, and item analysis, etc. But today we're going to be talking of standard setting, which is another area why we want to put it in to improve the quality of our assessment systems. By the end of the session, we would be able to do the pre-hoc standard setting for written examinations using the modified ANGOF. And we will be able to do it synchronously as well as asynchronously in order to have valid and reliable results. What is standard setting? It's only procedures for establishing credible, defensible, and acceptable passing scores for examinations. It may be, the standards may be fixed, norm reference, or criterion reference. So what does each of them mean? Fixed standards are arbitrary. These are the ones that we grew up with. When I was in medical college, there was a pass mark of 33%. What did it mean? I could get away not knowing 66% of the subject, 67%. What, and if we fix it at 50%, what does it mean? What 75%, 60%? Who fixed it? And how do we know that this is the pass? It is assumed that it equates to the minimum acceptable competence. But even if you have 55%, that means you can pass without knowing 45% of the curriculum. Next, it remains the same even if the examination is very easy. And it conveys the idea that all students were excellent. And if the examination was very difficult, giving to the same cohort of students, we feel they didn't know anything. So this is pretty unfair. Next, we come to the norm reference, where a fixed number of students must fail the test. It's not based on the difficulty of exam content. The failure rate remains the same in all exams. You have a brilliant group of students, 5% must fail, and only 5% will give honors. You have poor ability students, even then 5% will be getting honors, even with 45% pass marks. So how fair is this? It assumes that all student cohorts have the same proficiency. It doesn't happen, we know that. So we will talk more about the criterion reference, which is also called the absolute method. And as I tell you at the end, it's not flawless. It sets minimum standard for competence, and it can be for knowledge and for skills. Today we're talking knowledge, so I'm going with the modified angle. And we predetermine before the exam the cutoff for that level of students. Now, if the same exam is given to a different group of students, you have to redetermine the pass mark by a new exercise. You cannot have the same level. It takes test difficulty or the easiness into account. And pass and fail depends entirely on the ability of the student and how well you conducted this exercise. So this exercise needs to be as unflawed as possible. The more common or the more favored absolute standard setting methods are the Angoff modified and the borderline methods, both borderline group and borderline regression. Today we're going to be talking about the first. But in any of these, you have to identify the level of the borderline student who has exactly about 50-50 probability of passing or failing that question or that test. Or it's a marginal student who some days might barely pass and other days may just have a borderline fail. And so to do that, you need 6 to 8 experienced teachers and examiners who know what such a borderline student looks like, who know and have taught and have assessed these people and know exactly how much they would know and how much they will not know. And that's why, and you need 6 to 8 because 1 or 2 is not a good number. So if you talk about 5 steps, or actually I've broken them down into 4, you have 6 to 8 judges. These are content experts who have taught at that level and assessed at that level for at least 5 years. And they discuss the qualities of what a borderline student means to them, and they give examples. And they reach a consensus on what is the profile of a borderline student? What does that look like for this exam? If it's a written exam or a clinical exam, whatever. At this level of exam, what is the profile of a borderline? What could they know? What could they not know? A rough idea. So after that, you show them each question in that exam paper. And each judge then estimates separately, entirely without then talking to each other. They estimate the borderline student performance on each question. What is the percentage or probability of a borderline student perform this question correctly? Or in other words, how many of 100 borderline students will perform this question correctly? If the difference between judges is more than 20%, it's renegotiated. And if outliers cannot renegotiate, they're usually not, they're just put aside. Once you get all of these average of judgments, you get the mean item passing score or the passing score for that question. You add up all the questions passing scores and then divide it by the number of questions and you have your examination passing score. So this is how it's done. You have all the questions and then what did judge 1 say? What did judge 2 say? What did judge 3 say? What is the percentage of probability of a borderline student getting it right? Suppose this person said 0.2, it's only 20% would get it right, 30% would get it right, 25% would get it right. So you put the average here. And at the end, after all the questions are done, you get the total and you divide it by the number of questions and you get the exam paper cutoff. So in this COVID-19 era, we don't want people to come sit together and discuss and do it. And it will be very difficult to come to consensus over 6 feet apart. So what we do, and it's so easy and brilliant, we form a team using any video conferencing software with screen sharing facility. It may be Teams, it may be Zoom, anything, as long as confidentiality can be maintained. Because you don't want the questions to get out on the YouTube next day. You need one IT experts to be able to manage this. You need one standard setting administrator, and I'll talk about why. This person will have the file with the questions, who will share the questions with the group. Then you have 6 to 8 content experts sitting in different localities in their own homes, institutions, preferably in their own homes. And then you have an education standard setting expert who is an expert in the process of standard setting. So content experts are the experts in the discipline. The educational standard setting expert is an expert in the process of standard setting. And what does he or she do? They actually put down and mark, and they get the standard setting votes from all of the content experts, and they put it on a separate PC. We can use this raise hands option for voting. For each question, we can ask each of the different examiners, so what did you think is a probability? Somebody says 20%, you write 20%. 30%, you go through the hands option and make sure that everybody has put in a vote, and judge 1 remains 1 throughout, judge 2 remains 2 throughout. And after each question is voted on, you share the screen showing the content expert the standard setting votes for each question. And you do that question by question. The administrator shows the question and you get the vote. You put that vote on a separate screen and then you show this screen and show exactly how the voting went and what is the average for that question. If the gap, as I said, is more than 20%, or if there is any gap left between the 20% and 50%, then you renegotiate. Or if there's one person saying 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, I mean, what's happening there? If the voting's too spread about, again, you need a consensus. After getting a consensus, you finalize the standard for each question and move on. After the finalizing the standard for each question, you do it for all of those 100 questions. And you then add up all of the voting averages and then divide it by the number of questions and you get the exam paper cutoff. You can do it asynchronously. There are papers that have described it where we still need the educational expert. You still need the content experts. You still need the administrator and the IT experts for flawless connectivity and for flawless confidentiality. The content expert ratings are requested on emails or through, it is safer to do it through item banking software, and that's why you need the IT expert. Because if it's on emails, it can be hacked. It's not safe. Once you get the votings from all of the judges, The post-Angoff rating discussion may or may not be conducted. Some universities conduct it, some universities just take the average. If there's an outlier, they discard that vote and move on. So this is another asynchronous way of doing it. The only thing is the faculty need to be developed. Everybody should be able to download whichever software you're going to be working on. And they have to be familiar with it. They have to be familiar with two areas: the use of that software, and it may be an item banking software or Teams or Zoom or whatever. And they need to be aware, very familiar with the standard setting process. In order to do that, it is easier actually to take them through the process as well as write it down and send it to them so they have it in front of them at every point. Lastly, they need a dress rehearsal before the standard setting exercise, but which may be conducted first 15 minutes before the synchronous meeting or at any time through email. Even for the asynchronous, we want them to know what to do when each of the questions come. So we need faculty development, we need something in front of them at all times, and we need a dress rehearsal. So in summary, for valid and reliable pass-fail decisions, because norm reference exams can be used par excellence for entry level, but not for pass and fail. For pass and fail, we must set standards, because arbitrary is thoroughly unfair. Norm reference is not, again, thoroughly unfair for pass-fail. And absolute and criterion reference are the only way to go. You must ensure smooth connectivity and confidentiality. And you must ensure the faculty is comfortable with the standard setting process, that faculty is comfortable with the video conferencing software. Having said all this, I just want to say, there is no gold standard. Even with this, we make mistakes with borderline students. But there are fewer mistakes and much more defensible going through this process. It makes the cutoff of passing score less arbitrary and more defensible. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Rukhsana. It was a great talk. Can I invite the next speaker?
Go ahead, Hassan. You can invite Dr. Professor Mahasti Alizade.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rukhsana. That was a wonderful talk. We have learned, as always, from you. So, Hassan, would you like to invite Dr. Alizade?
Hello.
Welcome. Welcome, Dr. Mahasti Alizade from Tabriz.
Hi, Professor. I'm. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear. We can hear you.
Okay.
So you can start. Do you want to share your slides?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm honored to have a presentation here in this webinar, and in this first webinar on assessment and its quality improvement during COVID-19. My name is Mahasti Alizade. I am the community and preventive medicine specialist, and also the head of community and family medicine department. I'm also the chief editor of research and development in medical education journal in Tabriz University of Medical Sciences. Here is where I live, Tabriz in northwest of Iran. It's I think one of the a beautiful city in Iran, and also have nice historical places. I'm inviting you to come to Iran, of course, after the epidemic. What I'm going to discuss today is about these three questions I'm going to discuss today about what are the types of open book exam and what are the security issues with open book exams, and also the other question is, should it be proctored or not? First of all, I would like to emphasize on some important issues about the competencies and abilities of medical students and all medical sciences students. These are the main competencies of medical sciences students, but one of the most important ones: acquiring knowledge, modifying knowledge with new experiences, or applying knowledge, problem solving, decision making, and also critical thinking. In order to achieving these skills, we should use specific methods of teaching and also some kinds of assessment methods. And in order to achieving these abilities and competences, just memorizing the information, just information content is not enough. We should go toward the ways and methods to teach the student how to process the information. So that's why we use the open book exam. In open book exams, the questions require the students to answer in more critical and analytical ways, and encouraging high order thinking skills. But on the other hand, in closed book exams, most of the time you cannot have some more critical questions, and you cannot encourage most of the time encourage memorizing of the students. For designing good open book exams, first of all, we should know the ideas and views of students. These are some ideas and views of students about open book exam. When you know these, you can design better exams and better assessment methods in open book exam, and better questions. For example, some students says, I don't need to study much for my exam because the information will be right there for me to look up, or all I need to do in the exam is copy the answers out of the text. So students, some of the students reported spending less preparation time for open book exams because they felt they could find answers in the book. Based on these ideas and these views and different views from the students and other authors in the papers, we should consider some issues in developing and designing open book exams. These are some important ones. The most important issue in designing open book exam is to design good questions that assess the interpretation skills of the students, the application of knowledge among students, and also the comprehension skills of students, the critical thinking skills, not just recalling the knowledge. So in order to develop such a questions and to assess the skills, we should have case-based exam questions or real-world problems. These are, if we use these kinds of questions, we can decrease the other problems in open book questions that I will mention a little later. The other type of questions that we can use in open book exam are some, we can give the student some qualitative and quantitative data and ask the student to interpret it. For example, these are kinds of these questions. What does the data show? You give some epidemiologic data to the students or some data on about a patient and ask the student to interpret the data. And for example, you ask what other factors could potentially affect these data. These kind of questions can test the ability to apply and to analyze, to evaluate, and also to create the creation and the synthesis and interpretation of the students. And these are our objectives in these kinds of examinations. The other part of my presentation is about the types of open book examination. Categorizing open book examination is based on these items, these subjects. One of them is type of items or type of questions. The other one is reference sources permitted, which sources is permitted for the students. The other one is time of the exam, and the other one is the place of the exam. The first one about type of the items. As you know, in closed book tests, most of the time we use closed-ended questions in medical education, such as, for example, multiple choice quizzes or extended matching questions or matching questions or something like that. But in open book tests, it's preferred to use open-ended questions. But unfortunately, when the number of students is too high, for example, above 300, checking the answers is very difficult. The other categorization is about reference source permitted, about the restriction in the exam, and it dividing restricted or unrestricted open book exams. In the restricted type of open book examination, students are permitted to bring to the examination room some books, references, calculators, and everything that the course instructor has been permitted before. But in unrestricted type of open book, they are not permitted to bring any resources or references. And as you know, now in COVID-19 era, we should have some online open book exams, and of course our OBEs would be unrestricted, and we should have some solutions for this problem about unrestricted open book exams by designing good analytical and critical kind of the questions. The other categorization here is a kind of open book exam that are that the students are allowed to have discussion with their peers, with their tutors, or they don't have they don't allow to do that. The other categorization about the time. Some of the open book exams are with time limitation, and the other ones are without time limitation. The open, for example, at the beginning of the semester, you give some questions and problems to students and ask them to submit the answer in 2 weeks, in 1 week, or even till the last day of the semester. Most of the authors prefer to design a time-limited open book exam because of, in order to prevent some, for example, cheating or other things that I will mention it a little bit later. The other categorization is about the the exam is in class or take home exam. Of course, in COVID-19 era, we will have take-home exam in this time, but as you know, before this, we had so many in-class open book exams. Some of the authors discuss about the disadvantages of take-home tests, and they said that maybe it encouraged cheating. But Weber et al. In an article concluded that cheating does not appear to be a greater problem for take-home tests than it is for those held in class. So we can design an open book exam with good questions and with some critically thinking questions to avoid cheating when they use it in the when we use it as take-home exam. The other subject of my presentation was about the security issues in open book exam. These are some problems that in some of the papers they mentioned about the open book exam. For example, problems such as cheating, discussing peers in chat rooms, or using prepared reports from cheat sites, and also plagiarism. How we can prevent these problems. As I mentioned before, the more analytical the problem, the question, and also the problem-based questions, when the less cheating. When you design a problem-based question and also an analytical question type, the cheating will be less and less. The other suggestion for increasing the security is the limitation of time, or minimizing the time. When you minimize the time, there's no time for more discussing or cheating. And you can also use plagiarism checker systems. There are so many plagiarism checker systems in the universities and online, and you can subscribe and use them. The other solution is using multiple case studies. You can use different case studies, different scenarios, or you can use question banks of, for example, patient histories or case studies, and assign these questions and problems among the students randomly, and this help to prevent some cheating and some discussion among the students. But about the final question, it was that should it proctored or not? As you know, in our class open book examinations, we can have supervisors, we can have proctors, and also especially in restricted open book exams. But when our exam is online, how we can do that? How we can proctor, we can supervise, we can check the students. There are some solutions for that. There are some companies they produce some softwares to do that. One of the examples is ProctorU. ProctorU, here is what they offer. For example, they offer that we observe the test taker via a webcam, we watch the test taker's screen in real time, we authenticate the student's identity, and so on. There are so many different proctor online, you can use them, and but I believe in the question and the designing of the question and the objective, the educational objectives that you use, and the matching between the objectives and the questions that you use. At the end, I want to I really like this cartoon and the quote under it, that everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is a student. Here, the teacher says, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. And this is the main concept in designing the assessment. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for your time. I'm ready for the questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Alizade. It was really interesting talk. It's a challenging area and there are a lot of questions. So, but we will take all these questions in the question and answer session after all speakers, finish their talk. So now I would like to invite Assistant Professor Dr. Tabassum Zehra to start her talk on open book exam as online asynchronous mode. Can you please, Dr. Tabassum, can you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum, all of you. I'm trying to share my screen.
Sure. There is an echo. Are you connecting with two devices?
Wait a minute.
Tabassum, are you okay? Can Hassan help you?
Trying to do something, some problem with this screen. I don't know what is happening over here.
You want me to share from my side?
Just a minute. I think I'm okay. Probably. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see. Could you click on slideshow mode, please? And then. Yeah, perfect. Yes, you can start. Thank you.
So, assalamu alaikum, all of you. I am Dr. Tabassum Zehra. I'm working as assistant professor at the Department for Educational Development at our university. I am working as the director of Health Professions, Master of Health Professions Education Program, and also the director of the Residence as Educators Program at our university. So today I'm going to walk you through what is e-assessment and how the paradigm shift has taken place, why open book exam should be conducted, what are the skills going to be tested, and a model of learning of hierarchies through the Bloom's taxonomy, the reliability and validity questions that arises, and how this is being tested, and what are the reported reliability and validities, the item types, the challenges that are being posed with open book examinations and designing open book exam, and what are some recommended practices. There are a few bit of information that might have been, alluded very nicely by Dr. Alizade, so I'll just try to not to give much time to the information and not try to replicate it. So there is a paradigm shift, and we all know that educational environment is going through this paradigm shift. And of course, assessment and evaluation, there are crucial steps in the educational process. And with this COVID-19 as well, the era that has emerged, the pandemic, the learner assessment is moving into a new phase. So we are moving into an assessment which is assessment for learning rather than assessing learners exactly. So health professionals always demonstrate competencies. So how and where are they good to assess? So it is all the competencies that need to be assessed. So assessment should be purpose driven. What should be assessed and why should be assessed? So assessment tools should be valid, reliable, and feasible in order to better assess the learner with the purpose that they are driven for. Assessment methods should match the competencies being learned in order to achieve the objectives that are derived for the particular course or particular program. And so online assessments are not very frequently used because of the issues of validity, reliability, and dishonesty, which has been reported very commonly in literature. With the emergence of the COVID-19, we have seen different phases of higher education learning and the transition of different phases. Initially, there was a move towards online teaching and learning. Then there was a phase where the universities were required to have essential elements, essential necessary resources available. And then there was transition to continue this towards a longer period of time rather than moving to face. And then again, now we are moving to a phase where this will be a new normal situation. So why open book examination? Why not other exams? Or why not closed book exams? So literature reports that the body of knowledge is doubling every 10 years. So is it okay if we test the students with a closed book exam? Or we need something else, or we need some higher order thinking of the students to be tested? So the important thing is to remember that the increasing amount of facts may have changed or disproved by the time a graduate leaves the institution or they start a career as a professional. So it's also important to use and manage knowledge, dealing with new problems and dealing with different situations. So basically, the graduate is graduating with two sets of knowledge, a core knowledge and a backup knowledge. So the core knowledge is one which does not need any reference, and the backup knowledge is one which needs to be understood and used to be evidence-based. And open book exam reduces memorization, the factual recall. So it utilizes a higher order thinking rather than just factual knowledge. So open book exam assesses, as I said, higher cognitive level, and it is closer to what is expected when on the job. That is what they are going to be doing on the real life situations. So studies report open book examinations of same durations as the closed book examinations because there's not much literature for the current scenario, and it's not been very widely used in medical education. So what are the skills that are going to be tested? As Dr. Alizade has very nicely alluded upon the skills, I'll just quickly go through these skills. The intellectual skills of the learner which are tested are basically the creative thinking skills and the critical thinking skill, because it's a higher order thinking, it's a higher order cognitive skill that is needed from problem solving to problem solution and making sense of what is being provided to the students. Why, how, where, and what. And considering the Bloom's taxonomy, you can see that the use of the factual knowledge is just remembering, right? So
sorry, Dr. Tabassum, I need to intervene because audience hear an echo from your. So I would suggest you reduce your volume, from your speaker, because your own voice is again we can hear. Or if you have two devices, you log in, please log out from the other device. Can you try again, see?
Or mute one device.
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear.
Is it echoing?
Yes, yes, even more than what it was.
Is it better?
Yeah. Okay. You can continue. Sorry for interruption.
Yeah, just a minute. Let me see if the volume is okay.
Okay.
Sorry for the interruption, but right. So is it clear?
Yeah, much better.
Yeah.
Continue, please.
Okay, I guess. Okay. So with the advent of the Bloom's taxonomy in place, and as medical educators, we all know that Bloom's taxonomy is the basic concept that we always refer to when thinking of assessment and teaching and learning, and leading to the competencies that are being expected. The open book examinations are used to assess the students at the level of applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating, as Dr. Alizade has already alluded upon. The issues, as I already I have alluded upon in the earlier slide, is that the reliability and validity issues have been reported in literature, and hence the online assessment are not very widely used. Um, the reliability that has been reported for the closed book examination varies from 0.747 to 0.850 Cronbach's alpha, and for open book examination 0.712 to 0.80 Cronbach's alpha. There was a study by University Groningen where they studied year one students for both closed book examination and for the open book examination. And in this study, there were two cohorts that were taken, and they both were given the open book and the closed book examination simultaneously. So if you could see the reliability of the cohorts using the open book and the closed book examinations with the items of 128 is almost very close. I'm not talking about the exam which is having the mix of the items, but if looking only at the reliability of the open book and the closed book items separately, you could see that it is very close. So what about validity? We have talked about reliability. So open book examinations are not usually used, as I already mentioned, and there's very limited data available comparing the validity of open book examination with closed book examination to make a decision about validity issues. The use of open book examinations and proctored closed book examinations should have a balance between authenticity and validity of assessment programs. So this is one thing that has come up in literature, that it's always good to have a mix of types of assessments, like you can have open book and closed book examination, a variation of open book and closed book examination, in order to have a valid exam. Because the other validity that has been reported in literature is related to the consequential validity and the construct validity for the open book examination, because it's only the validity of construct that can be mentioned, that is it the testing what it is supposed to test, and the consequential validity, where and the impact of this test will be on the learner. So item types, there are different item types that are being reported in literature, which are being given as a test, like essay questions, short essay questions, patient management problem, modified essay questions, constructed response questions, multiple choice questions, and extended matching items. I will leave this the explanation and further detail of the items to my next speaker to allude upon. And the challenges. So of course, it's not easy to set an open book examination, because it has to have items which are of higher order thinking, which are testing the analyzing and critical thinking ability of the student. So setting an OBE question is a challenge. Also, how they are going to be marked, like making the rubrics for assessment. Because if you are giving a long essay question or even a short essay question, what are the rubrics for marking those questions or items? Proctoring and invigilation, as Dr. Alizade has alluded, is again a challenge. And in nowadays, with the COVID era, technology-based invigilation is coming into consideration, and the Microsoft team have offered universities this technology-based invigilation, which is of course of high cost. There's variance in exam setting. So because of virtual situation, you have students which are sitting at various places. So how are you going to manage this? So again, there is technology issues and the failure of technology, internet problems, connectivity issues, and the resources. Whether the students have the right resources available with them, whether because they are at virtual situations, and they are giving their exams remotely. So what are the resources available? Are they having the same kind of resources, or each student is not having the same kind of resource? So this is again a challenge for the exam developer. And again, academic integrity. This is important because you would like your student not to replicate or not to just copy the test and provide the information when writing in an essay question response. So what are the considerations while designing remote online examination? I would not say that this is from the literature, but this is something that has come up from my own thoughts, and this is my own analysis, that there should be a table of specifications, and that should mention what skills and knowledge are to be assessed with respect to the items that are going to be developed, and it has to be examination blueprint of the open book examination as well. And there would be a careful design of test items to minimize recall. That means that it has to be a item of higher order thinking. Broad sampling of the subject matter should be considered, rather than just giving a small number of items into the test would not suffice the validity. Focus on learning strategies needed. You need to provide a guide to the student, because the students may not be familiar with the process of taking the open book examination. So they have to be guided through. They have to be familiarized. So there need to be some kind of instructions to be provided to the student, and hence a guide needs to be provided to them. Or you can have a formative assessment of open book examination before going towards a summative exam, so that they familiarize with the process. And of course, faculty development is absolutely essential, because the faculty is supposed to develop the items, and open book questions need to be of standard mode and have to be of higher order thinking and application based. So faculty development is absolutely essential. Then it can also, in order to minimize conferral, you can have the randomized control of items, and the eye test paper could have items which have order of randomization. So recommended practices. Recommended practices is universities across the world that are using open book examinations have used academic integrity statement being signed off by the student before they take the open book examination. And they provide students with a list of acceptable resources for open book examination, so that they know what is available and what if they're stuck. Avoid high stake final examination. Because as I said, the students may not be very well prepared with the open book examination. It's always advisable to keep the weightage of the summative examination below 40% and aim for 25 to 35%. However, if the students get themselves familiarized, then you can always raise the level of the exam. And you need to show the students the level of taxonomy that they're going to be testing. Use question formats that students have practiced, as I already mentioned. Consider using case studies. Dr. Alizade has alluded upon already. And using higher order thinking questions. And if you're using essay-based questions, it's advisable to use 1 to 3 questions which are focusing on this demonstration of the student's ability to retrieve, apply, and integrate knowledge. You have to provide the word count limit so that the student knows how much of response is expected from the student. And for the multiple choice questions, the random set of questions is already mentioned. So these are some of the references. And with this, I would like to thank you all and open for question and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tabassum. It was a really great talk and a lot of questions been asked, but I will actually hold on to the questions after we finish all speakers' talk. We will take the questions one by one. Okay, so may I invite the next speaker, Professor Sher. So he will be talking on assessment tools as test of higher order thinking in open book exam during COVID-19 pandemic. Over to you, Professor.
Hassan, can you switch on my camera, please?
Sure.
Yeah.
You can turn on your camera now. Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. And I will share my screen.
Sure. Yes, we can see. Can you make it in a slideshow mode?
Right.
Yes,
can
perfect.
you see? Can you
yes,
see the
we
screen?
can see. Perfect.
And you can hear clearly.
Yes.
Right. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the University of Edinburgh, the Global Health Academy, and the Sadiq International University for giving me this opportunity to speak in this forum to the scholars and medical educationists. A title of my talk is a bit long, but it relates to assessment tools which can be used to test the higher order thinking skills when used in an open book examination format. The plan of my presentation, I'll give a very brief introduction to open book examination. It has been actually explained by previous speakers as well. And I will then identify the issues relating to conducting open book examination during COVID-19, especially under these circumstances, and then how to find the solution to those issues. Selection of appropriate tools of assessment for open book examination, and especially I would be talking about modified essay questions. And my last slide will be dealing with security and academic dishonesty during open book examination. The COVID-19 pandemic has challenged the medical educators to creatively develop the teaching, learning, and assessment methods that can work effectively and efficiently while maintaining the social distancing and avoiding the gatherings of classroom and examination halls. Medical schools have been forced to dramatically restructure teaching and assessment amidst the COVID-19 epidemic. And as we have seen in the previous presentation, open book examination format has emerged as one of the favorite options to assess the students for progression to next level of the course or training during this pandemic. Open book examination is not just open book now, it's open web examination, and it's a platform for using many different types of assessment tools, as Dr. Tabassum has mentioned in her slides. Open book examination allows candidates to consult resource materials during the examination, and it tests the ability of the candidate to find and apply information and knowledge in particular situation or for solving a particular problem. Thus, using essay-style questions requiring problem solving or delivering solutions are preferred. However, multiple choice questions have also been used in this form, and obviously the questions requiring recall of factual information are not suitable for this format. Now, let's talk about the points for and against open book examination format. This is a study published in 2005, and it was based on the use of multiple choice questions in open book format, and this study has answered some of the questions. The first question: are there any differences in the achievement of students working in an open book setting and those working in a closed book setting? The answer is no. Is the tension and stress reduced by knowing about the usage of an open book setting? Answer is yes. How do students prepare for an open book format of a multiple choice test? Answer is wider reading of the textbook. And how do students use the text during the examination? By knowing the structure of the textbook as a learning resource. And the final question: how do students feel about this process of learning and assessment? Answer is deeper understanding of concepts and principles rather than time spent on memorization. Now, these were the points for, and let's look at the points against open book examination format. This is a publication from 2018 based on a letter written to the journal. The first open book examination may cause students to feel the pressure to purchase higher quantity and quality of books to ensure better coverage of the curriculum. Students may spend too much time on the book searching or confirming their answers instead of applying the higher learning skills. Examiners' workload may be increased if there is a need to polish the material that students use. Whilst the use of higher learning skills is to be commended in medicine, relying on human memory for the recall of critical facts still has a place in the medicine. Quick recollection of facts during patient care remains crucial in certain situations. For example, in an emergency situation, or the most up-to-date information during surgery. Continuous referral to the internet or textbook during consultations may give patients the impression that their doctor is substandard. Now, next one is interesting. This is the students' concerns, and it's very recently published by a medical student, a fourth-year medical student. And it is necessary to direct and stimulate students to proper open book test preparation. A new unfamiliar examination format will inevitably lead to students feeling daunted. Working from home during social distancing surrounds students with extra family stresses that we are all facing during this pandemic. Students' homes might be noisy and disruptive, with families under increasing social and economic pressure, making examination preparation difficult and environment not conducive for examination. Without ever taking a formative open book examination, negative thoughts invade my mind. How hard will the questions be? How can I avoid spending excessive time aimlessly scrolling through mountains of information on Google? What if I face internet connection problem? It is a situation of challenging morality and integrity in a stressful situation without invigilators watching over one's shoulder. So based on these studies, if we want to have a summary of possible issues and problems, first one is unfamiliarity, both staff and students. The lack of open book examination experience for both students sitting the exams and examiners constructing the questions may provoke anxiety. Constructing questions. When books are available online and answers can be searched in a fraction of a second, it is not easy to create challenging questions. Types of questions, all types of questions, multiple choice questions, essay type questions have been used in open book format. Arguably, questions assessing the recall of information are unsuitable for this format. High expectations. The answers must be excellent as students have access to the resources, might be taught by the examiners. Marking, likely manual marking, would increase the workload. Academic dishonesty, plagiarism, the effect of social isolation on mental health, and sitting exams without invigilators may incentivize students to cheat. Now, coming to the tools used in open book format, as has been previously mentioned as well, the types of open book examination format, restricted or unrestricted, based on the level of access granted to consult the resources. Structured essay questions, whether modified essay questions, short essay questions, or short answer questions, and multiple choice questions like single best answer or extended matching type of questions. As I mentioned earlier, open book examination is one of the favorite options. However, at a time when books are available online and answers can be searched in a fraction of a second, it's not easy to create challenging questions. Modified essay questions, while maintaining the spirit and concept of outcome-based of open book examination, can provide a valuable and much needed respite in this situation. I'm so used to use OBE for outcome-based education that sometimes it comes on instead of open book examination. MEQ is based on the progressive disclosure of information of clinical cases, situations, and issues. The candidate has to exhibit his or her ability to take focused history, interpret physical findings, and investigations to come to a diagnosis before detailing an appropriate plan of immediate and long-term management. It very closely resembles the real-life workplace situation for medical doctors. Modified essay question has the potential of assessing the higher order and critical thinking skills and decision-making abilities. In online modified essay questions, pictures, videos, and animations can be used very effectively, which were not possible on paper examination. Many statements and descriptions can be replaced by visual exhibition. For example, picture of a child with cyanosis and an X-ray showing the relevant findings, or using videos. For example, this video of a newborn having fits, and it can be noted the jerky movements of the hands, lips, and the eyes. And instead of describing all these things, we can just simply add this video, and that can give the real picture. Example of MEQ for phase 1. This little scenario: while preparing breakfast, Mrs. R had a little cut on her finger. She had mild bleeding which stopped spontaneously. Question: describe the mechanism that helped to stop the bleeding in Mrs. R's finger. Scenario continues. In the evening, Mrs. R felt some pain in her cut and found it a bit red and swollen. Question: name the condition causing symptoms of pain, redness, and swelling and its pathogenesis in Mrs. R. A day later, Mrs. R found some pus in her wound, and the question explained the mechanism of development of pus in Mrs. R's wound. This is an example for phase 1, our so-called preclinical phase. The MEQ outline for phase 2, it's usually multiple part question, maybe 4 or 5 parts. Part 1 gives patients biodata and presenting complaints, and students are required to take focused history or write the questions they would ask to the patient. Part 2, physical examination findings are provided and students are asked to interpret the findings, make a list of differential diagnosis, and give a choice of investigations. Part 3, investigation results are provided. Students are required to interpret the investigation results and come up with a final diagnosis. And the final part is immediate and long-term management of that particular patient, including prevention. The process of selection of topics or blueprinting, if we make a full list of topics which we want to test in a particular examination, then we identify the common clinical cases, real patients or OSCEs, which we would be using. We can strike out these topics from the list, and rest, mainly the clinical cases, can be assessed in modified essay questions or structured essay questions. And based on the cases which cannot be examined in clinical examination, for example, patient in coma or road traffic accident, best way is to use case records of real patients to construct these questions. And the remaining topics can be assessed in multiple choice question format. Now coming to the my last slide on examination security. The flow of questions is controlled by the examiners and not by the students. Just sufficient time is given for answering the questions. Students do not have access to the answered question, and this is practiced even when it is a paper-based examination. Invigilation by using camera and mic or by proctoring. Tallying the results with the previous assessment. I think this is a very useful method. We tally the student's result with the previous formative assessment, ongoing assessment, and see whether it is too high or too low. And we can have additional Viva examination for these outliers. Or those students who complain that they had internet disruption during the examination, they can be also examined orally, and we can check the written answer for plagiarism. With that, I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Prof. Alamsher. It was really interesting talk. A lot of audience really like your video, which you incorporated, and nice example and practical examples you shared. So now I would invite the last but not the least speaker, Professor Shaid Hassan. Yes. Prof, you need to unmute. And after this talk, we'll be actually taking all the questions one by one.
Good evening and greetings from Malaysia for everyone. Do you see my slides?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Clear.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Hassan. Thank you, the organizers, for inviting me. This is consecutive third week I'm coming, and I'm really shy to introduce myself time and again. But what my introduction would be again, that I'm a professor in International Medical University, and I'm the faculty training lead for the School of Medicine in IMU and assessment subgroup lead in Medical Educators Network of Malaysia, and overseas editor of the Pakistan Journal of Otolaryngology. Though my interest is changing gradually, has changed a lot from my research into clinical subject areas to more in teaching. My area of interest are faculty development, assessment, and psychometrics of assessment, one of which I'm taking today. The instructional method and research in teaching and learning. Okay, so let's begin with this. My predecessor speakers have talked a lot about reliability and validity is getting my job a little easier. Hassan, do you need me? Do you want me to see, or it's okay with the video? Okay, it doesn't matter to me. Okay, so let's go. I'll be talking more on the evaluation of assessment for continuing quality improvement in teaching and learning. Okay. The learning outcome that I have kept for this is just one, so that you take this as a take-home message as well. So identifying some of these measures other than the Cronbach alpha alone, right, to determine the reliability of assessment in medical education. This is will be my conclusion as well, and the take-home message for you all. That do you think Cronbach alpha is sufficient enough? We talk a lot about it, and we talk, say 0.7 onward is what we get it, but how we get it, there'll be some eye-opening for you in this talk of mine. So the continuing quality actually is about the quality and the assurance of the quality. So quality control, which begin with the administration, but I'll be touching up somewhere in the middle, which is about evaluation of assessment using psychometrics. So for the face validity, I'll suggest, and the content validity, blueprinting is very important. So the quality in assessment actually begins with the preparation of the assessment, which is vetting, standard setting, which Rukhsana Zuberi has talked in detail, and then the blueprinting. So these are some of the essential components of the continuing quality improvement, and evaluation will be something which will provide us with the evidences, right? So looking at the reliability coefficient, Cronbach alpha, almost many of my predecessor speakers have talked about it, but it is about the internal consistency of the items within a test. What happens? Simply you increase the number, your Cronbach alpha will go high. Even you increase the number of the candidates, Cronbach alpha will go high. Of course, validity speaks of the reliability. So ensure validity, they observe a good blueprinting content. So that will lead to high Cronbach alpha. Ensuring the question from the same format. For example, the construct you are maintaining is, say, a written exam. And in that, if you're meeting certain specific area from the various disciplines, the Cronbach alpha will go up. Ensuring the questions are well written, of course, that is mandatory and will go Cronbach alpha up. So what really bothers me, if I have a 50 items and I make this 50 into 100 items OBA, suddenly my Cronbach alpha from 6 may jump up to 0.8. So is that leading to a real Cronbach alpha, leading to a real reliability? It is simply adding on my OBAs actually lead to it. This is a food for thought for everyone, and I would love to take questions on that. So the alpha 0.7 onward is acceptable, and my take would be that for a standard exam, you should keep 0.7, 0.8 for a high stake examination, and 0.9 for very high stake examination. I haven't seen 0.9 actually, though it's supposed to be in literature excellent, but I haven't seen yet in my setup. But something here that I have created this for you is very important. it is not alone the Cronbach alpha in terms of the internal consistency. We should also look at other aspects of the reliability, right? For example, stability. You can do it with the test retest. Is mostly done for the research purposes, that you want to see the reliability of your set of questions. Administer it in one setting, and then after a span of time, say weeks or months, it shouldn't be too close. Time shouldn't be too close or too far away, because too far away, student may have intervention, they may have one more teaching, so that will create a bias. But stability to really check on, you can check on your from your question bank, administer it to students in your informal setting, and see whether the test retest actually is. So, but this will be about the stability of in long term. Other thing which internal consistency to me is important is that most of the time the examination unit will provide you questions which is a single set of score. Cronbach alpha cannot be determined, cannot be calculated at all when you have a single set of score, and often you end up with a problem and you keep requesting the examination unit to give you every item score. If you get every item score, SPSS worksheet developed in a nice way, you can get it within 1 to 2 minutes. Excel will take little longer, but still it is done within 3 to 4 minutes. You'll get your Cronbach alpha. But what if the score is in a single set? So what my suggestion would be, either you go for a split half method, which divides the entire score into even and odd number, and then 2 sets of the score can easily be taken for the Cronbach alpha. The other is, say you have 100 OBA or 50 OBA, administer them in 2 different papers, paper 1 and paper 2, maybe in the morning, afternoon, or maybe one after another. Also will serve 2 scores, which Cronbach alpha can be done. The third reliability would be in terms of when you have, and we do have a lot of short essay questions, the long or restricted essay questions, right? So for that, you need the inter-ratal reliability in terms of kappa or ICC. It depends on your data, right? If your data is nominal, go for kappa, and if it's a continuous score, then go for your ICC. Okay, now I'm taking you, what are the other which often are ignored? We are very happy, end of the examination unit, somebody put to really do the task of the evaluation, will do the Cronbach alpha, we all clap and we leave the hall. Nobody asks, what is the standard error of measurement in this? You ask and you will get something to think of, right? Standard error of measurement is directly related to reliability of the test. Though it is related, but you have to have a standard deviation and the formula given here. But if you look at the graph, if a standard deviation from 5 to 10, then you might see the Cronbach alpha changing from say 0.9 for standard deviation at a different level, 5 and 10. So this indicates that reliability, though still is the way we determine is the Cronbach alpha, will play a role in standard error of measurement, but this error actually will tell you where the flaws are in your assessment. It may not be student's fault alone, right? Student fault alone or student's error from the students may not be alone. It may be from the faculty side, how we structure the question, right? And the way we structure the question might have been a flaw in our assessment. And there could be an interaction of the students and the way the question are structured, right? Generalizability coefficient has given me a great deal into it. It's my area of interest that I'm recently doing to know really where the fault is, where the flaw is. And often it is not students. It is alarming, and generalizability coefficient will lead you to that. And you can do, you don't need the R statistics and all, you can do it with ANOVA as well. Okay, now, besides the consistency reliability, we all know that error, each assessment is actually not free of error. So what we see is the observed score. Our observed score is not the true score of the students. It is a true score plus the error, but we never bother to determine the error. And I tell you, I'll give you a 2-minute statistical test that can determine your error. So why not look at it? We're always happy with the Cronbach alpha achieved. And I told you, how can you achieve? You just increase the number of the candidate, your alpha will go up. But why not look at the error, right? May not if for its application to readjust the score, but at least for your own research purposes to see how, and for the faculty development, of course, these can be used as an evidence for faculty development, right? So the standard error of measurement is useful, and for at least we should determine it for one standard error of measurement, which is 0.68. So we 0.68 means 68% of the score will fall within one standard error of measurement. But if you want to make sure that it actually encompasses all the students, say 95%, which is the normal practice in statistics. So for 95% confidence interval, you'd have to have 2 standard error of measurement. And for this, so say we have a standard error of 3. For one standard error of measurement, 3 will be 3. So we can add on or we can subtract from the cutoff score, which Prof. Rukhsana Zuberi has given a good deal of it. So cutoff score was determined, you can add on or detract to have a range of the true score, right? Now, so and the engulf cut score, 2 standard error of measure mean 3, you have to time the Z-score, which is at 95%, right? At 95%, Z-score is 1.96. So you have to multiply your 3 standard error of measurement, for example, by 1.96. You want to make sure that 95% probability is covered, right? Again, Prof. Zuberi, I liked it when she said where this number comes from, 50%, 60%, or 70% arbitrary, right? Where it comes from is a magic number. I know the history where it comes from, but this is not the forum to discuss that. But time permits, I'll discuss where this number comes from. But definitely is not sustainable anymore, right? We have to have a standard setting, we like it or not. Now, another way to look at the your reliability would be the factor analysis, and this particularly applies to OSCE, where we always see in OSCE, we always see the problem of the dimensionality. So never be afraid or never be scared of OSCE if your reliability or alpha is very low. It ought to be low. Why? Because your every station is different from other. Variability, right? They are produced in different way. And so this dimensionality or variability will definitely have impact on Cronbach alpha. So a low Cronbach alpha may not be a serious issue for you in OSCE, provided you have other evidences, which I'm going to take you through now. Now we look at this as the component, the 5-station OSCE. I have done a factor analysis, and then you can clearly see that the last station, the OSCE 3, actually here doesn't belong to the column which is number 1, right? The score is suddenly different, and it overloading is into the next column. So this clearly tells me that the OSCE that we are dealing with, even if it has a 0.7 or 8 Cronbach alpha, is not consistent because one station is outlier. So this station outlier, we have to look back whether this OSCE was developed more on the line of a knowledge based, and that is a food for thought to think of. So factor analysis can be another option, right? Now looking into the OSCE for reliability, I suggest don't just fall on Cronbach alpha. Reliability measure could be standard error of estimate. Here, for written test, we do it standard error of measurement, which is a standard deviation, square root 1 minus reliability. But standard error of estimate is a different story. It is not the same. Though it leads you to the same outcome, but is determined in a different way. How it is determined in this different way, say standard error of measurement you all must have been doing the OSCE now, is a checklist and other is the global rating, right? So the checklist and the global rating, they are regress against each other, and that is also one of the way to do standard setting, right? Prof. Zuberi has covered the ENGOF for written, maybe sometime we cover it on the standard error of estimate in terms of OSCE. But what it is, actually, you can very easily determine it. Don't go for the formula and the mathematical way of doing it is very easy. You go develop your worksheet on Excel, and within a minute or two, you can get this scatter plot and this equation, right? And this equation can be used to determine the predicted value. And this predicted value is very important, right? Why? Because you are having two sets of the score, global rating and the checklist score. And literature has confirmed that the global rating is better than the checklist score, right? Now we our reliance is on the checklist score, and the students score very high. So now this equation can be used, and then the other way is you go and do on Excel or SPSS, use a regression method, and you get this. Now you see this you can get another 1 or 2 minutes, and then what you get in return is standard error is 11.6 something here. Beside this, you get the R square. What is R square? R square is one of the coefficient which tells that how much change in checklist score is actually explained by the global rating, right? This is very important to know also, because your global rating goes hand in hand with the checklist score. So you can, within 2-3 minutes, you can use the graph I have shown. You go by a scatter plot or go by a regression, and you will get it very easily. And you will get your standard error of measurement and your R square, which explains the global rating, how much it explains the checklist score, right? Now I'll take you through a little bit. I just created this morning for you to make it, because if I go by text, probably it takes it's my 2 days workshop actually, but I'll make it in within a couple of minutes. See, these are the, say for example, the data points here, and then we have a mean of this data point. And in the next, what we do is we apply a regression, right? Regression is nothing but it is an analysis that estimates relationship between the two dependent and independent variables. Here, the dependent variable is checklist score, and independent is your global rating. Now, these data points I have drawn, and then next you will see that when the regression line is drawn, the data points will gather around this. So they will become close. Now we have to see how this data point deviation has actually is a matter of concern for us. Now see, the actual data points is there. Estimated, which is determined by the regression, which is taking into account the global rating and the checklist score. So this area between actual and estimate difference is your standard, some of the standard error, right? And this can be used in calculating the standard error of estimate. Now, here we can see that the actual score minus the estimated score, which is the formula given here, you can go by this, but here using this formula, this n is the degree of freedom. Here, the total number of the subject is -2y, because the global rating and the checklist scores are the two scores involved in this. So for degree of freedom, you have to minus it. So this is sum of the total standard, sum of the standard error, this, and divided by the total number of the subject taking exam -2, because of the global and checklist score, right? So this will give you standard error of estimate. Okay, now how can you calculate your R square? You can get it very easily, as I demonstrated showed to you early. You go by regression using SPSS or by Excel, or you do a scatter plot. There also you will get, apart from the equation which is used for prediction, right? It is the R square you will get also. This R square actually explains how the change in checklist score, which is explained by the global rating. Okay, so this way you will have this. And then the last thing I would like to emphasize on is root mean square error. Go for root mean square error instead of the Cronbach alpha, and it is not difficult as well. You have a global rating, always put on the left side, because it has to be on x-axis, checklist score on y-axis, which is on the second column. Create a model. This model is from the equation that you get, right? From the equation here, the equation that you get here, actually this equation, you will calculate the individual score, right? And then you minus from the checklist score. So this is a model which is from the equation. You minus it from the checklist score, you get residual. This residual is squared, and then you use a formula given up there, and you calculate your root mean square error. This is much, much better than depending on Cronbach alpha. So it should be as less as possible. There's no specific number in literature which says a specific number like Cronbach alpha, but as less as possible. Each station root mean square error you will determine separately, and average as that will be your root mean square error, which leads to your reliability, a very precise method. So now quickly going to the item difficulty, right? That I've been talking on the statistics. Item is the test statistics. Now item statistics. Quickly, it is the difficulty and discrimination indices, right? And the correlation, the total score. This correlation can be Pearson's correlation, and there we have a point by serial or biserial correlation, right? Point by serial when the score is dichotomous, like in OBA, right? In biserial correlation, it is polytomous item. You can have SEQ, KFQ, which are graded, right? In OBA, you have one score, either 0 or 1, but here you will have a graded score. So the corrected correlation is where we compare the item with the total score, but that item is minused, right? And then alpha if item is deleted. And I give you with example again. Say, for example, the Cronbach alpha for this OSCE is 0.365, right? For 5-station OSCE. Now the total correlation of each item, OSCE 1, against the total score is 0.567. So that gives you that how much weightage this OSCE is actually has on the overall assessment, right? Now here, if you look at the column below, item total statistics, corrected item total, here the item is minus from the total, and then we see the correlation, right? This is a good, that item is minus, because if you put item, naturally the correlation will go up like it in the upper table. Now, the most important to me is the alpha if item deleted. It's very interesting. Say, for example, Cronbach alpha here is 0.365. And when I delete an item, for example, I delete item number 1, it falls, right? Meaning that this item was having a positive role in Cronbach alpha, because I remove it and it falls to from 3.365, it falls to 0.306. For example, an item 3, right, which we found that once I delete it, the Cronbach alpha goes up, meaning that this item has some problem and we have to look into it, right? Now, these are the area you have to focus on, right? I have already done with you, right? Now, the difficulty indices and the discrimination difficulty index or the easy index, these are the range, right? But I suggest that you follow this for 2 different kind of assessment. If you're doing dichotomous, MCQ, multiple true-false, key feature question, for example, then keep it 0.3 to 0.8. This is the range, right? 0.3 to 0.8. Beyond 8, it's very easy, and less than 3, it's difficult. But if it is graded, say your assessment is graded, then polytomous in terms of SEQ and restricted essay question and modified essay question, then follow 0.2 to 0.8. 0.2 will be very easy, easy, yes. 0.8 is very easy, and 0.2 will be very difficult, right? Point by serial is also important to know. Ideally, we in IMU keep it 0.25, but you can keep it 0.3 as literature suggests. Point by serial is very good because you see one item against the total performance. It's one item's performance against the overall performance of all items put together, right? Now, the item discrimination is the same thing. Formula is given up there, right? But what you do, it determines how do you see the performance from the compare your performance of the good students from the poor students. Ranges are given here, right? Time doesn't permit to hang on and explain much detail. This is the automatic generated metrics from the online assessment that we have in IMU. So we don't have to perform all this. The point by serial and all will be the metrics generated from the online assessment system. But nevertheless, you have a formula given here. You want to do it manually for your research or for learning, you can do it. And we are going to have a workshop on this very soon, right? So, but the problem is we cannot have a workshop for over 100. Probably we are going to take 30 at one time. Okay, so now in summary, any alternative assessment approach during COVID era must be designed to ensure students' achieving the learning outcomes. So as all predecessor speakers have been talking on this, that the learning outcome must be a very good constructive alignment is needed between the learning outcome of the program on one side, your instructional. So you cannot, we all are recommending that OBE, we should have a test of high order thinking. But if you have a test of a high order thinking, when your teaching is at low order thinking, and you are teaching them at recall level, and you're putting them to creation or evaluation level, probably not be justified in doing OBE with high order thinking test, unless your instruction also change. To ensure this assessment process must go through review and quality assurance, which I have given you along a number of coefficients, reliability coefficient and statistical tool that will determine for you. Constructive alignment of the program learning outcome to your two extreme, the assessment and instruction method is very important. The way you teach, you ought to examine the students. Don't teach them at low order level, mostly with recall, and then normally we do in anatomy and other. And then we ask them to put them to clinical question, which is problem solving, will not be justified. We have to change our instructional method before we change our assessment. This should be this should include the familiarity, and then of course when you're doing open book, you should include the familiarity with e-learning platform and tools as well as pedagogy. We call it Prof. Rozan from Malaysia has introduced this term, technology. Now this era we are combining technology. Never forget pedagogy. Pedagogy will never die off. What advances technology take over, pedagogy will remain, and educators have to be there for this. Now this is the last slide I'm showing you is the workshop. It is on 18th, which will be on the, the program is given here, and we will announce all these workshops one after another, maybe every fortnightly, as Prof. would allow us, because currently we are planning to have one webinar and one workshop. Workshop, incidentally, will take 30 because we are going to create the hands-on, and this hands-on will create the breakout rooms. You will be divided into small groups and breakout room where you will come back with your group work, present in main hall. Right, so this will be what we planned. So technology again, pedagogy combined with technology, we are going to deliver our workshop, and this will be a series of 11 workshops I have designed, and we'll be delivering it. Thank you very much, and I would love to take questions if any. Thank you. Thanks, Hassan. Okay. Over to you.
Thanks. Thanks, Prof. Shaid. It was an interesting talk, and there was a lot of discussion while you were talking. But before that, let me share my screen and. Okay.
I have stopped sharing. Now you can.
Right.
I have stopped sharing.
Thanks. May I know what you're saying is a slide from a message from Professor Liz Grant, right? Okay. So she was actually here in our session, but she has to go to attend another meeting. So she just messaged us and analyst and me that, well, so it's better I should read. So it's delighted to hear so many interesting presentations, and I have to leave now. So as my next meeting is actually there. So great themes emerging, important to curate these for learning. So thank you again. So that's what message from Professor Liz Grant. She's assistant principal for global health and director of Global Health Academy at the University of Edinburgh Global Health Academy. Okay, and let me introduce, we have a workshop by Prof. Shaid on 18th, so mark your calendar. And on 25th July, we'll be having a webinar from Prof. Sholeh. Okay. Right. Let me start a question answer session. Prof. Rukhsana, are you around? Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I'm
Okay,
here.
great. So the first question is, do you want me to read or you can
Yeah,
see
well,
there?
yes, I can see this. The
Sure.
issue is that we keep thinking the experts are only in our own medical college. We keep forgetting that in the city there are many experts, and we need to do things collaboratively rather than separately. And your 3 questions in ENT or your 5 questions in ENT are going to be the same in one medical college or the other. And these people have a very good idea of what the students are like. So if you have experienced content experts, use them. All they need is training and getting to a consensus on what is a borderline student looking, what does borderline student profile look like for this item. Do you understand what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be from your own department. We keep thinking that we are doing it in isolation. Maybe it's time to break barriers and to break walls and do things collaboratively. So that was my answer. There's no consensus less than 6 judges.
Yeah, so next question is there already on the screen?
And this is also for me. How many hours required for the online standard setting process? Okay, so it's the standard setting process. If you do it asynchronously, doesn't require a huge amount of time. What it needs is time for training the people. But there was another question that if you're doing asynchronous border consensus reaching, how will you do it? You do it via discussion board. You can, and it's best if the educationist moderates it. Because if you make a chair of the group, then the chair feels that if they have said something, that is ultimate. So the borderline student profile is constructed through a discussion board asynchronously. And this can be done very easily via email. It doesn't spend hours. You don't need to do it, spend hours. How to train faculty to design analytical and critical constructive questions in so much short time. Actually, I'm not sure how short the time is. This is something that a lot of us have been dealing with. I spent the last 20 years of my life saying the questions should be analytical and critically for critical thinking and analysis and should assess analysis and synthesis. So, I mean, we keep saying, no, they have to have some basic facts. Basic facts are available everywhere. Even today, when you don't know anything in the clinics, you open your mobile and you look up the web. It's no harm, there's no shame. So design analytical questions just means that you have to think outside the box. You need to have a scenario where the answer is not given. You need to give them some basic data, and then application or interpretation questions are so much easier, and they can be made for junior or phase 1 students that are called. For more senior questions, you can make them more problem solving. And the other thing must remember is what is problem solving for year 5 students would be recall for a resident. So you have to be careful when you say problem solving. Is that clear to some extent?
Yeah.
Okay, how would the experts agree on the characteristics? Yes. So yeah, that I have already answered. You have to get a discussion board going, and I think that was asked by Dr. Corser. Can open book exams effectively? Yes, they can. Why not? Because the area, again, as I said, is one of my pet themes has been open book exams for a long, long time, even before the COVID, because we use our mobiles everywhere. We use them in the clinics. Okay, maybe you can't use it in the procedures, but in the procedures you need skills, right? For that you need different set of skills. But for ordinary recall of facts, you don't need to remember everything. One of the things that you have to remember is that so much is changing. I just want to say 4 lines. The curriculum I learned, 50% is obsolete. Of the 50% that is not obsolete, I only use 50% because I don't do OB or anesthesia or surgery. And out of the what 50% I do, even that I have 50% I have forgotten. So when we keep on thinking that students must remember, sure they must remember. Yes, what is the normal pulse rate? What is the BP? Okay. But even that, if they forget, they can look it up. The only place where it becomes critical is when they're managing emergencies. And that usually happens with more senior students rather than junior. So I would say that if you have an analytical paper, you can have it as summative exams. I know there's questions on proctoring there. You can have a web-based thing looking. What we do at AKU is, even now, we don't have open book exams, but each question paper is divided into 5 different papers. And the sequencing of the questions is changed, and even the sequencing of the options is changed. So if I have question 1, which will be equal to your question 5, my A is not your A, even for that question. So there's a huge amount of play we can do with the open book, and if you want to use them for summative. All you need is a video cam. Yes, you will need a video cam to make sure the father is not answering the question if he's a neurosurgeon. Because, honestly speaking, we talk of students, but the students learn what they've learned at home. And we see a number of people helping out their children. So that is the only reason I'm asking for video cams, that somebody else is not answering that paper. So does that make sense?
Good. I think Prof. Shaid, you want to ask something?
And one last other thing, I think there was another question that said that it's very stressful for students. Always have mock exam before putting in a summative. No matter if you change just the delivery or the assessment or anything, even a minutiae amount, give a mock. Make the students rehearse. It will be excellent for faculty also to develop the questions. And if their students go through mock exams, it will take down their stress level and etc. So I think there was one other question, and that said how much time. The time actually depends very much on the kind of questions you're developing. If your words per question are more than 100 words per question, and the time to read the whole question plus all the lab reports takes 5 to 10 minutes, then the time given per question increases. But if you make it short and make sure that the question words are less, the words per question are less than 100, then you don't need that amount of time. But I would strongly suggest that during the mock exam, time them. Time the people, you get a very good idea. Half the time, I know at AKU, at least 95% of the students finish a 3-hour exam within 2 hours. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Prof. Dr. Said Yawar, would you like to ask question? I allow you to unmute yourself and ask.
Yes, my question is that as you know, there's a technical issue regarding the electricity. What about the उसमें कोई discussion नहीं हुई about this at the user end if there's an electricity issue over there. And the second is that there are many softwares which are used to share the screen and the system to other system as well. As you know, that many of those students having background of the medicine, like father is a doctor, sister is a doctor, and if the screen is sharing, so what will be the precaution for that to be taken? And the last one is that
due to short of time, I think we will move on. And I think Prof. Rukhsana already answered your question.
Okay.
Use a webcam where you could identify. Okay. And I will actually ask other speakers if they would like to add on. Thanks for asking question. So we move on. And let's move to Professor Mahasti Alizade. You have a questions. Are you around here?
Yeah,
Can you
yeah,
see
yeah.
now? Great. Thanks. So can you read the question, or you want me to read?
Yes, the question is about the validity of any open book exam, and I think as validity refer to the coverage of the content. One of the meaning of validity is the coverage of the content of the, for example, book or the subject. In open book exam, we can use different methods to be sure about the validity. And one of these are, we can use the judgment among the, for example, the instructors and the teachers, judgment among the specialists in that area. And also, what is important in open book exam, as you know, in open book exam, we just, we can have just 2 or 3 subjects in an exam sheet. For example, one subject about, for example, abdominal pain, or one subject about a kind of study design or something like that. And we cannot cover all the content. So I suggest, for increasing the validity, we'd better to have the open book exam as a formative exam, and we perform it during the semester to cover all the content of subject. This is about the validity of the exam, and the question about this selective study among medical students. Yes, because some of the subjects are selected to be as questions in open book exam, and we can do it as formative one to decrease this effect.
Yeah. And if you want to answer Dr. Said Yawar's question just now, you can add on, because he was asking about different proctoring tools.
Different? I didn't.
Okay, never mind. How about this?
How we can ensure there's no cheating? Yeah. If there's no invigilator in remote virtual, as I mentioned in my presentation, most of the time we cannot be sure about the cheating, and for preventing the cheating and for ensuring that there's no cheating, or maybe less cheating, we should design good questions. We should design analytical questions, critical thinking questions, and not just the questions that the students can extract the answer from the book or textbook or their notes. So designing an analytical question is the solution for decreasing the cheating.
Yeah, great. Just to remind all our panelists or speakers, you can look at the chat box. There are a few questions. You could reply them via chat, because it's very hard to cover all the questions. So it would be very helpful for all the audience. So you can reply in the chat. There are a few questions coming in now. Okay, there are a few more questions for you. Yeah.
Yes, about the training faculty to design. Yes, it's very difficult. We can have some workshops on it, but some subjects, such as the clinical studies or clinical sciences, for example, lab studies or epidemiology, medical statistics, IT, or health service management, these courses can have some analytical and critical thinking questions. For example, evidence-based medicine, you can train the faculties to develop some questions and some problems and some real-world scenarios, and use their real-world experiences as questions for open book exam. And the other question is how we can observe the students' physical activity.
It's like practical or something like that.
Yes, for some physical or practical and maybe psychomotor skills, sometimes we can ask the students to video, to film themselves, to show some psychomotor skill. For example, I have an experience. I gave some a scenario about the breaking bad news, and I asked the students to video themselves with their friends about how to give bad news to the patients. We can do these practicals by making them by asking them making video or something like that.
Thanks. I think it's the same question which I repeated. Thanks for answering the questions, Prof. Okay, let's move on to Dr. Tabassum. Are you there? Yeah, you can unmute yourself if you're around. Dr. Tabassum Zehra.
Yes, please.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Would you like to answer this question?
Yeah, this is a burning issue, and I guess across the globe, this issue is being faced, and we also at Dhaka University have been facing this issue because recently also, when we have moved to online and remote teaching, so we have issues where students are in areas where the connectivity issue is there, and they are not able to get connected because in such areas the facility is not available. So the issues that were taken into consideration and the solutions that were provided were, providing internet bundles to the student, providing them with extra data, and the IT support was there to provide such kind of support to the students and to ensure that the connectivity is there when they take this exam or they take the sessions. So this is one thing that the institution can support their students, providing them internet bundles and providing them that kind of support.
Yeah, there are a few more questions.
The hand skill competency exam seems to be difficult to perform remotely. Any idea or trials on that? Yeah, hand skill competency exam is obviously difficult to perform remotely, and not only to perform, but even to assess. So there are ideas coming up with, like, online OSCEs, where the assessments are being trying to be conducted. Like it's not specifically related to the skills examination, but yes, on some soft skills like communication skills. So these are a kind of competencies which are now coming up as skills to be tested remotely, but still clinical skills exams to be assessed remotely is still an area which needs further exploration. The quality of education will be compromised through online teaching. Quality of education depends on the engagement of the learner. The more you engage the learner, the more you are able to provide a good quality education to the learner. So online teaching, yes, there might be some compromise, but it's up to the facilitator, up to the faculty, how you can engage the learner and what kind of exercises and how experiential learning you can provide to the students. So that will depend on the activities that you provide to the learner, and how practical will be performed by the students. I think this is not the scope of this webinar, because we are talking about
Okay.
book
This,
examination. So maybe this would need more elaborative response. So maybe we can
no
park this
worries.
question for
Sure.
next time.
Yeah.
Excuse
Thanks.
me,
Thanks.
can I just answer very briefly about the
Sure.
hand
Sure.
skill competency? The two
Sure,
things
Prof.
over here that we have started. One is that history can be done by simulation of simulation patients on remotely, and it can be judged remotely by an examiner. That's not an issue. The real issue comes on examination. And what we're planning to do is to get students to come to our simulation lab where they will perform it. And there no COVID area. Everything is maintained, but by social distancing. They'll perform it. The video is made. Everybody is very busy, but assessors can see the video again and again and give feedback or even assess. The most important thing is for not only for assessment, but observing student performance for improved clinical skills. So I just wanted to say that. The last one is that it says quality of education will be in compromise through online teaching. Our students are learning online. This is a different breed of people. If you teach them well, it depends on how good you are. It's not the strategy that is important. It is not the delivery that's important. It's the student, the quality of the students and the quality of the faculty. If you feel and your area is such that you are going to teach it and to get them to think about it, then there is no compromise. I just wanted to say the compromise is not based on delivery. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Prof. Rukhsana. Just to announce all participants here, because there were few requests that they would like to they would like to access the slides of all our speakers. So thanks to our organizers, they already shared the link in the chat where you could actually access the PowerPoint slides. Dr. Ahmed Ibrahim, you want to say something? I can allow you to unmute yourself and question very quickly.
Oh, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you for the wonderful speech. No, I'm a listener today. I don't want to say anything, but it's really a very good topic and very good discussion.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for your support and continuously coming this webinar. Thanks. Okay, let's move on to our next speaker, Prof. Alam Sher. Are you around? Can you unmute yourself?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Great.
Can you switch on my camera, please? Yeah. Okay. Right.
Camera is on and your voice is clear. Can you read the question here?
Yeah. First question: our staff and students are not trained for open book examinations. I have seen stress increasing among students and teachers. What strategies we must do? That is a real problem and realistic situation. If we want to use open book examination, which the students and staff are not familiar with, then we have to create an avenue to create that familiarity. Maybe one or two exercises, one or two formative assessment, and before the real exam. So, I mean, that's the minimum we can do at this stage. It is easy for the institutions who have been practicing this even before COVID, but the institutions who want to do it now, they must conduct a few sessions before the real examination so that students and staff become familiar to that. Second, for online assessment, what does you recommend synchronous examination are? And I think it depends what kind of assessment you want to do. For example, I was talking about modified essay question. I think there are a number of softwares available and even free software, and they can be used very effectively at the same time with the MEQ. The easiest one which I tried and very familiar, easily applied is like ExamNet. It's free, at least for this year, and we can use that way quite easily. So if we explore, I think we can do these things quite satisfactorily. Third, can we reduce stress by incorporating practicing exam activity? Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier, that if we have few sessions of practice or rehearsal or maybe formative assessment before actually conducting the real exam, that might be helpful. A number of things have been mentioned previously, but one must realize that online teaching and online assessment cannot completely replace face-to-face assessment. So there are limitations which we need to work with. For example, there was the Breaking Bad News example was given. For that, that's quite easy. Actually, we can have Zoom session with real patients or with and the conversation can be there and they can be assessed. And if there are so many candidates, actually these can be recorded and examiners can watch those videos later and assess the students. So next.
Yeah, there's a last question there. Can you read that? We
can
assess
we reduce
skills.
stress by incorporating the Prof. Malik? We assess skills, knowledge, and attitudes. Please tell me how we can assess skills and attitude. Knowledge will be okay. The remote assessment on its own will not be sufficient. As I mentioned earlier, that online assessment cannot replace completely the face-to-face assessment. There are certain aspects. For example, in attitude, many things can be assessed. Like interviews, like communication skills, like Breaking Bad News, which can be for, let's say, we can connect the student, examiner, and a simulated patient, or with a real patient, and those things, the things can be assessed. But any skill where you need to have hands-on demonstration, there would be definitely limitations. Although some things we can ask the students to make videos and send.
Yeah, so Dr. Mudassara, I'm going to allow you. You need to raise hand. Can you unmute yourself and ask question? If you have, can you unmute Dr. Mudassara Zahid? Or you can use the chat too, and then I can read for the panelist. Okay. Let's move on to Prof. Shaid. Are you around, Prof. Shaid?
Yeah, I'm around. Yeah.
Okay. So this was the title of your talk, and the question.
So first question I can read is how we can reduce the stress by incorporating practicing exam activity. Okay, this is, I think I like this question very much in the sense that we talk a lot about summative assessment, grading students, looking at their progress to next level. I think in COVID, one thing which is getting really very alarming for all of us is that we have to really rely more on formative assessment. And then we have to redetermine our learning objectives. Learning objective in the COVID state, we have to redetermine to reduce the stress, in the sense the faculty development as well as student familiarity with not only with the platform, but also the change in the learning outcome, and the instruction model has to be changed accordingly as well. So I think without this, probably if we just simply follow the literature, we debate and debate and debate, and then end of the day, we end up with this semester assessment and grading. No, if I ever become in charge in any way of institution, I think exams, assessments are nightmare, but this is need of the accreditation and some of the other agencies that we have to. But this is a time, COVID has given us a time to really look at your formative assessment, practice it as much as you. And the focus should be the progress of the students. They are achieving the learning outcome, which is reset in COVID. It's not the same. Then another message in open book exam should be that the student should be clearly told that they have to prepare for the exam the similar way they are preparing for the closed book. It's no difference, right? And then making them to really, pushing them to have problem solving. As I said in my talk also, our instruction should also be on the same line. So we teach them on problem solving, we ask them on problem solving. So using formative assessment as much as we can actually will give practice to the students and to the faculty, and then we can think of the summative assessment. So in my opinion, the best time that formative, and then I'm very strong proponent of actually breaking the boundary between summative and formative assessment, right? Summative assessment over formative assessment over multiple time, you gather the over different data points, you gather enough information, right? Those information can be used to triangulate students which is borderline at the summative assessment. Why not? Why we just give them another exam and ask them, say for example, he failed, and we give them 2 or 3 days to retake another exam, or the same day in presence of the external and determine their fate? That's not fair to me. We have to have over the year record, or over the month's record of formative assessment, to look into that and triangulate it with the your decision making in summative assessment. So my second is, can students revisit their answer sheet question to correct to something in it? Revisit their answer sheets. In what sense? Are you talking about the modified essay questions? Or what?
Yeah.
This
If
question
Dr.
is a bit
Dr.
not
Imam
clear
is,
to me.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can start from question 5. Question 5.
Okay. Would you agree the Cronbach alpha not a measure of the dimensionality, and then not a test of the unidimensionality? In fact, that's right. It may be possible to produce a higher alpha coefficient for scale. So yeah, you see the OSCE, a different OSCE station is not same as the OBA or other written exam. They are scores, they are not the same. Say they form a scale which is on different OSCE station, which is set at different pace, which is set at different content, which is set at different environment and different skills. Okay, so in that sense, your dimensionality issue is never actually addressed by the Cronbach alpha. We are looking at the consistency, and if we know that some of the OSCE station may not be consistent, right? We are checking them on, testing them on communication skills. On the other hand, we are on some other skills and professionalism, for example. So they are not the same. So this dimensionality issue will be there. That's why I said root mean square error will be the right answer to it. And then standard error of estimate is another. R square is another. So there are multiple, and even the slope line. Why not the slope line? The line of best fit can offer you another reliability tool. So there are many reliability tools in OSCE, which is not unidimensional or not the same. It makes a scale of the different station, which are different in many ways. What is other question for me? Exploratory factor analysis in dimensionality issue. We can do actually principal component analysis. Principal component analysis fit in well rather than the exploratory. And this will, if the item loading is in different columns, and I have found, without naming where, but many, when I'm asked to do evaluation, and I see that in principal component analysis, 20 OSCE stations form the factor loading is in 4 or 5. So it clearly tells the OSCE is developed on a line of a test of actually the test of knowledge. It's not test of skill. We have to bear with that the OSCEs are a test of clinical competency. But say, for example, we use exhibits, and then the checklist says the supervisor or the examiner is going to ask you a question, which often is not related to the exhibits. So this is actually not the test of skills. Suddenly we actually move over to the test of knowledge, and this will tell that our OSCE doesn't belong to the same factor loading in principal component analysis or
Yes.
factor analysis.
Prof, last question. Could you please
Yes.
expand on triangulation and domain-based assessment?
Okay.
Both have been
Triangulation has been, triangulation is now upcoming way of actually deciding on the students, particularly on borderline. The students who are borderline pass, fail, actually those students should not be given another set of exam immediately on the same day, because often in the presence of the external examiner, we form a panel, we say 4 or 5 will test you, random questions coming from them, or over the say final year exam, over the 5 years study, and we test them in 15 minutes. That's not fair, right? So instead, we should give them, say, another 50 OBAs. We should be prepared for those borderline students. Or if they are borderline, not clear fail, then go back to their formative assessment and do as many formative assessment as possible and triangulate their performance from the formative assessment to decide on their fate on that very day of the summative assessment.
Sure. I would like to thank all.
Mr. Hassan,
Sorry.
Can I answer 1 or 2 questions which are on the screen?
Sorry,
You can type in the chat.
Comment. Can I have a quick comment, please?
Because I've been asked to wrap up.
Okay.
Because time.
I just want to say one sentence. You know, in clinical assessment cannot be done entirely at home. This is an open book examination we were talking about. We are preparing people to become doctors who, after taking the exam next month, are actually going to be here in the hospital working with you. I do not see that final year students should be sitting at home. They should maintain social distancing, they should take all precautions, but they should be there training with us. And during that time, we'll be able to teach them and assess them on the job. We'll be able to teach them, assess them clinical skills as well as their professionalism. It's only the junior students that we need to work with online, etc. I just want to say that very briefly. The senior students, tomorrow, they're going to be doctors and they won't be able to stay at home at that time. Thank you. Sorry.
I think that's very logical, Prof. Rukhsana Zuberi. And you know, in Hong Kong, for example, they have reduced one of the institutions had reduced their teaching is mostly the knowledge based, and then they are looking forward to the internship training of the students, right? So 5-year program, 2 years internship, and 3 years is knowledge based. So I think what Professor Rukhsana Zuberi is talking, we shouldn't be just think of that we will be online all the time. The students have to come, and they have to come. Medical education cannot be based on knowledge teaching, teaching and assessment. Has to be internship training on whatever way. So we might modify our curriculum in the given situation of the COVID, and maybe if this persists, and who knows, another pandemic comes in. So I think what Prof. Rukhsana Zuberi talked makes sense. A lot of sense to me.
It's very hard to, I feel very sad to stop everybody because we run out of time. So very interesting, discussion may go for hours. So I think all of us can, get the contact email and you can discuss personally and then share, with us in the next series of our webinar. Once again, I would like to thank all participants and all the distinguished speakers. It was a wonderful session, and I would like to invite Dr. Bukhari to give thanks remarks. And yeah, can you unmute, please? Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, you are hearing?
Yes, it's clear, loud and clear.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much, all the participants attending this. I was looking the peak, and now around about 85 participants are there. We are thankful for the speakers, especially the first speaker, Professor Zuberi, whose talk was standard setting approach in COVID-19 pandemic area. Especially, it was a really nice talk, and thankful Dr. Zuberi is also my teacher. And the next speaker was Alizade. Really, it was interesting talk, and most of the all of the participants put the questions, And inshallah, we'll give the answers of all of these. And the third speaker was Dr. Tabassum Zehra. Thank you very much for giving this nice talk. And again, the Dr. Alam Sher, really, it was a long, one more webinar needs on this assessment tools. And you very nicely described very short of the time. And last, our hero of this one, the Professor Shaid Hassan, evaluation of the students for quality. Really, it was very difficult. You showed different formulas, alpha errors and beta errors. And really, it was a new for me and for the students OB examination. And once again, on the platform of Alizade International University, we are thankful and we'll hope, inshallah, in our next workshop that Dr. Hassan has announced. And we will put on all of these presentations, your questions and answers on the website. And we will upload your certificates. And if you feel any problem in downloading, as I am receiving some of the messages, we will send you on your email personally.
Okay.
Once again, thank you very much, Dr. Hassan, all the panelists, especially Professor Shabi. Thank you very much, sir, for day and night, your efforts, and all our other participants. Thank you very much.
Thanks. May I invite Prof. Shabi Alizade to wrap up and closing remarks?
Thank
yes,
you.
we can hear.
Okay. Thank you so much. I have no words to thank everybody. I mean, right, starting from the day we started working on it a couple of weeks ago, it has been wonderful. It's been a wonderful learning experience for me. I am a lifelong learner. Every time I attend such webinars or academic sessions, I feel that I should go back to my medical school and start from scratch. There's so much to learn, I tell you. It's amazing. All of you are experienced teachers, and I'm only a humble student. So I just want to say there's been a wonderful, wonderful learning experience for me. There has been a lot of effort that's gone on from the IMI headquarters. I'd like to mention Wajir Rizvi, who kindly allowed us all these facilities, Muzammil Agha from the IT department, and particularly Shifa. Shifa Abbas has been instrumental in helping us out with the Zooms. On the other side of the continent in Malaysia, special thanks to Mubashir, who's been working night and day to develop the flyers and organizing the webinars and uploading data and what have you. Thank you, Mubashir. You've been very kind. And of course, Shaid and particularly Hassan, who's conducted it so well. I couldn't have done it. It's impossible. It's too technical for me. I was born before the computers, like I say, so I still have to learn a great deal. Finally, thank you again. We are going to change this strategy. Webinars are getting too popular and too common, not popular, too common. So as a budding university, we're in the process of developing more creatable activities. So we'll start with the workshops, short courses, interactive debates, seminars, writing exercises, and hopefully we will come to a stage when we can match with the universities that have existed for 1,000 years. Good luck and goodbye.